Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tanya Massa, Director of Programs at the Ontario Centres of Excellence. Thank you for joining us today on the session entitled Help Wanted, Closing the Gap and Opening Doors to New and Emerging Careers. With today's major technological advances and changes in the global economy, it's not surprising that university and college grads sometimes have a hard time imagining the kinds of jobs and career options available to them. New career fields are emerging in areas such as data analytics, remote sensing, and advanced manufacturing. Unfortunately, there's been a tendency for some job seekers to dismiss potential career paths in certain sectors like manufacturing or mining-based careers based on outdated modes. This skill gaps continues to present a major challenge for several industries. At the time, the education system, which has had the job of preparing the next generation of workers, is also in flux and is attempting to calibrate itself to new realities. This session will focus on new and emerging careers and finding innovative ways to close the gap. I'd like to introduce you to the moderator of our session, Louie DiPalma, Director of SME Programs at the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. As Director of SME Programs, Louie is responsible for developing and implementing initiatives designed to strengthen the business climate of Ontario. Prior to joining the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, Louie held a number of senior management positions in the Ontario government. Welcome, Louie, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you. Is Graham Brown, Director of HR, Sustainability and Corporate Affairs for the Global Base Metals Business Unit at Vale. Before joining Vale, Graham spent over 4 years at ArcelorMittal Dofasco as VP, Human Resources and General Administration. Previously, he held HR positions at Toyota Motor Manufacturing Canada, Ericsson Communications Canada, Labatt Breweries, the CBC, and Nortel Networks. Currently, Graham is also chair of the Ontario Division Board of Directors for Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters. Welcome to the panel. And our final panelist is Gerald Moran, Research Collaboration Manager at Siemens Canada. Prior to assuming his role at Siemens, Jerry held faculty positions at both McMaster and Western universities and was an associate professor in medical physics and applied radiation sciences, radiology, biomedical engineering, computational engineering and science, and kinesiology at McMaster's. We are delighted to have you with us here today, Jerry. Now, each of our panelists is going to provide or give a 10-minute presentation. I would ask you to hold your questions to the end, so we will have an opportunity to ask questions. So let's start by calling Stephen to the podium and get us started. Thank you very much.
All right. Is this the forward on the slides, or this is
forward.
okay? Good. All right. So I'm here as much talking about an industry as about specifics for IBM. And the bottom line, just to get to the end of the talk and then work my way all the way there again, there's a lot of jobs and there's a huge demand. It stems from the rate of change of technology and the fact that that's accelerating. So there are new jobs. You know, we've probably all heard the cute phrase that today's graduate will be working in a job that doesn't exist today. To a large extent, that's true, and it becomes more true every day. So part of what drives it, from my point of view, is the fact that data is taking over our lives. So we look at these things, and I'm just going to throw out a whole bunch of numbers. Hopefully none of these are really surprising to you, because by now you should be very familiar with the story. You know, we've got 250 million tweets a day on Twitter, but Google does 24 petabytes of data. Huge amounts of data, and that's nothing. What we're finding is data is going to go up by a factor of about 1,000 to 10,000 over a decade. Compute power will go up about a factor of 100, so you've already got a challenge based in that. And then you've got bandwidth, which only goes up by a power of 10. So it changes what you can do. Right now you can download a movie, but what happens when movies take up 1,000 times the space for a very full interactive experience? We're running into these challenges all the time. The interesting number is this thing called zettabytes, and you've got all the zeros there just so you can see it. It's 35 billion terabytes. So everybody who's very happy you just bought yourself a terabyte disk at home, or you've been thinking I should have a terabyte, 35 billion of those. Okay? That's a year. And I can tell you that, you know, that's 2020, 2025, it'll be a day. So just as you think about these things, it's an incredible race, and it will be for a while. What that does is it makes data democratic. It's very cheap to produce data. It's relatively cheap to store data. Accessing data becomes a bit more of a challenge. Deriving value from the data becomes the real challenge. You can get to the data, you can do anything you want to the data, and now it's inside your head. What is the value that you can bring? How do you make this useful? Is it, and I noticed there's actually a device in the back corner there that you dip into water, and it measures, I think it's salinity and temperature of water. But you can imagine right now, today, students building tricorders effectively. You build a device, it's got a small processor, some Arduino or something processor. It's got a USB in it, it's got a GPS system that's got a reasonable clock in it so that you know when and where you are. And you can put a sensor on it. They're cheap, 25 bucks for a sensor. That whole device costs you $100, maybe $150 if you put it in a real fancy plastic box. You could use that and give it to Boy Scouts to dip in the water, dip in the Don Valley to find out where certain pollutants are concentrating. And then you can do the analytics to find the source of those pollutants, and you can backtrack it. But you can do it on a personal level. If you think your area of the city has too many trucks going by, Take the device out. Every time a truck goes by, push the button, record the sound level, by GPS coordinates exactly when and where. Take a picture of it at the same time. Now you've got evidence. Now you suddenly reach a point where evidence can drive governance, where you could go to City Hall and say, I need a traffic calming solution, and prove it. So you've got these new opportunities. Satellites. The newest satellites are 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters. You can lift that into space and it can start generating information. They're actually building these things. They're talking eventually about getting it down to, $50,000, $100,000. That's not out of sight of using it. What do you want to measure? Do you want to take pictures of the Earth? Do you want to watch urban sprawl as it sprawls? Watch traffic? Did people here, did anybody see Chris Hadfield's pictures he was posting from right? Awesome. Weren't they just absolutely awesome? You can get intimate with your country or any other country in the world. His personal comments helped a lot. But you can start to see the sort of information that we can gather. And it's not just the structured sources of data, but you'll see there's a few booths around here where people have started to explore, what do I do with the social data? How do I mine the universe? So many people share their thoughts. Twitter, I always joked when Twitter first came out, I want a muffin, I had a muffin, it was a good muffin. Those were the 3 tweets. Nothing else existed on Twitter. Now it's the main news source. When Osama bin Laden was shot, Twitter broke the story. Earthquakes, Twitter breaks the story. Twitter's there as one of many sources. Facebook tends to be more social, LinkedIn tends to be more business, but they're all finding their places. And those are the ones that are Western. There's also ones that are a little more popular in Eastern Bloc countries. There's Bebo, there's, well, we all think of 4chan as a bad thing, but 4chan actually is a pretty broad spectrum of services in China. So we look at all of these things and we say, that's what we're playing with. Data is out there, it's freely available. How do we take advantage of it? How do you run a business without having the data, without being able to make well-informed decisions? If it's energy and energy grids, what's the weather going to be like? What's the usage pattern? How well can we develop a model of usage patterns so we can start to predict load well ahead? With traffic, in Singapore as an example, it's so well instrumented that we can get 97, 99% accuracy 10 minutes in the future. At this intersection, we're going to start to see traffic jams form. So we start with this and we say, with the bulk of data, we can do descriptive analytics. We can draw pictures, we can say, this is what we've seen in the past. Now we're starting to collect up data as traffic is moving, for example, or patients moving into a hospital, energy moving through an energy grid, water moving through pipes, whatever it is. And we can start doing what we call predictive analytics. Given what we know in the past, given what we see happening now, what do we think the situation's going to be? There's going to be a traffic jam at that intersection. And the really exciting thing is we can become a time traveler. We can zip up 10 minutes into the future and say we're going to start to see a jam up here, and then come back to the present and say, let's add 3 seconds to each of these traffic lights in this path. Who's going to notice you're at a red light? Who's going to notice it lasted 3 seconds longer? But because it lasted 3 seconds longer, that traffic jam doesn't happen. That's prescriptive analytics. We're starting to see a lot of different places where that comes in. It may be traffic flow, maybe energy flow, maybe water, maybe we see a pattern where there's a little bit of motion in the flow of the water that's a little bit different in an aging pipe. It's a crack in the pipe. Can we identify that location before that becomes a major water main breakage? Can we identify that before it becomes a bigger crack that washes out the understructure? And, in Toronto terms, it was Finch, was part of the 417 in Ottawa a little while ago, where it opened up underneath cars. In Ottawa, it actually ate a car. Toronto ate a truck, a delivery truck. These are serious things, and we can catch them. We can start to get there. Those are the sorts of models that we look at, right? We look at what's happening in the bigger picture. Can we get a picture of what's happening subsurface? Statoil now drills fewer holes because they know where to drill. They have a better idea. As big data comes in, as we start to get through this, we start to understand what it is. Where are the breaks going to be in the energy? So what we've done, for example, is we've started to invest locally in the collaborative model for working with universities to build the next generation. And that's the tie back to OCE in particular, helping us with these small businesses. But the bottom line is you have to understand analytics. You have to understand how data affects your business in order to apply it. And that's one of the models. So I'm going to stop, and there'll be time for questions, and I'm going to pass it on.
So good afternoon. Hopefully you can hear me. Yeah, I'm good now? Okay. So I'm going to talk to you about jobs that do exist, and a lot of the folks in them are retiring and will be retiring in the next short while. And hopefully excite you about the electricity sector. And the way I put it is that it's not your father's or your grandfather's hydro anymore. That there's lots of advancements, and I'll talk about that. So I don't have any slides. We'll just have a conversation. There's an aging workforce challenge in the electricity sector, and there's a challenge of replacing those folks with younger workers like yourself. And in fact, in the next few years, we anticipate that there'll be a shortage of workers in the electricity sector. So since 2008, the workforce in the electricity sector has been eligible to retire at a rate of 8.5%, and it's now 11%. It's actually 3% in the rest of the Canadian economy. So you can see high levels of retirement. And those retirement levels are going to double by 2016. And in fact, employment of younger workers aged 15 to 24 in the electricity sector has more than tripled, over the past decade. So there's job growth in the sector as well and in fact all over Canada, all over North America, in emerging economies, due to the high demand for electricity and advancements in renewable energy sources. Some of the other challenges that our industry or our sector is facing is that at the same time, and in fact it's quite exciting, we are investing large amounts of money in our infrastructure so that we can renew our aging infrastructure. We also have a need for critical technological innovations to accommodate the smart grid advances. And we have changing needs of customers. So it used to be that the grid went one way, and that was to the customer's home. Now it actually goes the other way as well, so that folks don't have to call us to tell us that the power is out. We actually know it. So the same holds true at Hydro Ottawa. In the next 10 years, over half of our trades and technical folks are going to be eligible to retire. Currently, 1/3 of our workforce has 5 years or less of service, and about 7% of our workforce is made up of trades apprentices and engineering interns. As well, 48% of our supervisors and managers in the trades and technical areas have more than 5 years of supervisory experience. That's compared to 69% back in 2007. So opportunities for advancement once you're part of the sector are there as well. So we've got these shifting demographics, lots of opportunities for jobs in the electricity sector. And we think it's a great sector. It's a great, there are great places to work because the sector offers very diverse workplaces, very diverse career opportunities. A lot of electrical trades, a lot of positions in the electrical trades, in engineering, mechanics, system operators, and of course, the corporate services type of jobs. The shortage of skilled trades and engineers is across Canada, so jobs are available from coast to coast. And with such diverse workplaces, you can really choose work that suits you. So how do you know that the electricity sector is good for you? It's a good fit for you. Well, you have to have strong communication skills. You have to like math and science. You have to like working outside and like seeing tangible results. You have to enjoy working in teams and being part of a community. And you have to be creative and innovative and motivated to work in a constantly evolving environment. So apprenticeships and internships are at the core of our sector. So you get paid while you learn. You get paid while you learn an electrical trade. You get paid while you qualify for your professional engineering designation. So it's a stable sector. It offers competitive wages, good benefits and pensions, ongoing mentoring and training opportunities, opportunities for advancement, and it can be your one employer for your entire life. You can apprentice there and you can retire there, or you can choose to be mobile and to work across Canada, across North America, and in emerging economies. So you're very, very versatile once you're a trades journey person or an electrical engineer. So one of the exciting things that we've done, a couple of the exciting things that we've done at Hydro Ottawa is we have a partnership with Algonquin College in Ottawa, and we train folks to be power line technicians. And so the theory part is learned in the college, but the practical application is done at Hydro Ottawa by seasoned power line technicians and by those who are emerging leaders in our organization. There are a couple of other such programs across the province at Cambrian, Conestoga, and St. Clair colleges. So our program started with Algonquin with 24 students in 2011, and it's doubled for 2012 to 48 students. And our first graduates are graduating this month, in fact, and the majority of them had job offers before they even finished their program. Either job offers with Hydro Ottawa, with other electrical contractors or hydro companies, and in fact some of them went to Saskatchewan. So it's an area where you can in fact secure employment while you're still at college. Really, in closing, the electricity sector provides a lot of opportunities. It can be a rewarding career, especially in all areas, but especially in the trades and in engineering. The sector has gone through a lot of changes with the introduction of more renewable energy projects, smart grid technologies, and as a result, we focus on technological advancements, greening our sector, and of course, recruiting a lot more younger workers. So it's a pleasure to be here. I look forward to your questions. I hope you know a little bit more about the electricity sector and that you'll consider a career with us. So thank you. Thanks.
Much, Lynn, for explaining what's happening in the electricity sector. I'd like to call on Graham now to give his presentation.
Good. Everybody hear me all right? Okay. So I was really impressed with the IBM presentation. I thought that was very cool. If I were to look at the attractiveness of a career in IBM, I'd say that's real sexy work. That's really cool stuff. When I think about hydro, I'm thinking you guys are thinking, maybe not so sexy. You know, it's maybe not so interesting. It's not really as cool, right? And I'm here to talk about mining. Now, for many of you, mining is very unsexy. So, but what you have to keep in mind, of course, is in determining where you want to work, there are a few important things. And I would say that mining and electricity have a couple in common. One, it pays very well. Two, there's a real sense of adventure and a chance to make a real difference. And so I want to just sell to you a little bit here as we go through this and really give you a little bit of a different view of the mining industry. The first thing you need to know is that there's quite a lot of employment in the mining industry. And when we think about mining, it's not just about going underground, extracting ore. It includes mineral processing, which is actually taking that ore and making it into something useful. It also includes support services, which includes the engineering, the project management. Again, a very, very active sector. And finally, in terms of the actual exploration, obviously you have to find it first in order to extract it. So there's a lot of very interesting work. Again, if it's not for everyone. If you don't like to be outdoors, if you don't like to be in really interesting remote areas, if you don't like to travel the world, then maybe there's some parts of the mining industry that aren't interesting to you. But I would argue that there's a lot that can be very, very attractive to young people if they just understood what the magnitude of the mining industry really involves. So you can see here cumulative hiring requirements over the next 10 years in a variety of areas: exploration, the actual mining itself, the mineral processing, which includes refining and smelting, and support activities across Canada, well over 150,000 new jobs. And this is not only for growth, but to replace an aging workforce. So working in the mining industry, well, what does that entail? Well, first of all, I like to sell this concept that unless you're in agriculture, unless you're in the extracting sector, unless you're actually building something, you're not creating wealth. You're just redistributing wealth. So I'll speak for both the primary sector as well as manufacturing by saying, if you want to be part of something that creates wealth for the economy, work with us. Global leadership. We're the global leaders in mining in Canada. So we take a leadership position, not just in the technology we use, not just in the way we develop leaders, people leaders in our industry, but also in the way we finance. So we are looked upon as having best practices in many, many areas. So it's a great place to learn your craft and become a leader globally. The other thing, you saw all that data, which was, again, really cool stuff. Data is only useful when it helps you solve problems, or it helps you find things, or it helps you to discover new things. So that data is used in our industry to generate improvements in productivity. And a lot of the innovation that is in our industry is about three areas. One is productivity. The other is environmental impacts. So mining really has an adverse impact on communities. Okay, so one of the things that we need to do is find ways to mitigate or minimize that. So a lot of the work that we do, a lot of the innovation that's created, is around minimizing the impact, and in some cases returning the land to a better condition than when you actually discovered it. And then finally, health and safety. For many years, mining was considered to be a very unsafe and very unhealthy place to work, or industry in which to work. It is among the most safe of all industries in Canada now, and that's largely because of the innovation in the way we mine, in the automation, in various application of technology. So lots of innovation going on that in turn pulls a lot of the research and a lot of the supporting services and systems that are in the economy as well. Healthy communities. We work in mining because we want to, in fact, not just create good sustainable communities where we mine, but also to create good supporting services in those communities. In many ways, communities exist because mines exist. There are many communities in Canada that would not otherwise exist except for mining. So by creating new communities, we also create supporting services, and ultimately, if you look at communities like Sudbury, for example, you create hubs of activity such as centers of excellence in healthcare, centers of excellence in aspects of academia as well. Globally, our perspectives in mining, obviously, there are many global companies, both Canadian-based and foreign-based. You get an opportunity in mining companies to really truly be part of a global family and to share your knowledge with others in other communities. Mega projects is very cool. So a lot of people like to work with big equipment, big projects. In mining, you have the chance to work with the kinds of projects that just boggles the mind in terms of the amount of dollars spent. So many years ago, I worked in, as you know, in Toyota, in the automotive business. An average auto assembly plant will cost about $1 billion to construct. We have a project in Newfoundland and Labrador right now to create a new refinery, which will cost between $4 and $5 billion. You can imagine the amount of wealth and the amount of aggregate effect that has on the economy. These are the scale of projects in our business that we're working on. So what kind of work is there? Production and maintenance, probably half of the work is in this production and maintenance area. So as our workforce retires, we will have to replace. Exploration, again, requires a unique sensibility. You have to like to work in remote areas. Applied research, again, in those three areas that I've discussed, productivity, safety, and environment. Continuous improvement, as with many other industries, what drives innovation, what drives our ability to be globally competitive is the focus on continuous improvement. So lots of work going on in that area. We talked about reducing environmental impact. Again, applying unique technologies, data systems in order to monitor and improve the environmental outcomes. Health and safety outcomes, continuously looking for ways to make mining and supporting functions more safe. There's obviously corporate functions like in any company, and significant project management opportunities. These are big projects and complex projects. And for those of you that enjoy project management work, this is a great place to develop your craft. So I'm going to show you some examples of how the innovation is driven in the mining industry and how this really reflects on the type of work that's available. We have a project in Sudbury right now. It's a $1 billion plus project that is focused on reducing the environmental impact from our processing plants there. So you can see the SO2 emissions beginning back in 1970, and basically where this project will lead us in 2016 to almost a negligible level of SO2. So the innovation involved in reconfiguring our whole production process, our whole processing activity, in order to minimize the impact on the environment, makes this a really, really attractive project from the point of view of learning, applying new technologies, and project management skills. Another area that drives innovation and drives the imagination is the ability to mine safely and to minimize the interface between mobile equipment and people. And this project here uses rail technology and conveyor technology to basically take the ore from underground and move it to the surface without the use of any mobile equipment. So again, improves the safety and improves the productivity. And finally, I spoke earlier about our project in Newfoundland and Labrador, Long Harbour. It's a $4.5 billion project that is essentially, again, from a project management point of view, massive and very complex, but it applies the latest environmental technologies to the refining and smelting of nickel, so that essentially the environmental footprint is virtually negligible. So again, a chance to work with really leading edge technologies which deliver productivity and a very, very minimized impact in terms of the environment. So again, like hydro, maybe not your father's or grandfather's mining industry, very, very innovative application of brand new technologies really designed to deliver good outcomes for health, safety, environment, and productivity. So that's my sales pitch. What skills are in demand? Again, like the hydro area, a lot of skilled trades requirements. I think you'll see this across virtually every sector in our economy, industry or otherwise. And unfortunately, skilled trades do not have a good, I think, if you will, there's not a good view of the value of skilled trades, but quite frankly, skilled trades are critical to our economy and also generate a lot of wealth for those that are in the skilled trades. Engineering and technical, not surprisingly. Geological, using the latest available technology to do aerial mapping of geology of deposits. This is an area that requires continuous work. Obviously there'll be management positions, but as I said earlier, project management is one of the key areas that will continue to drive the mining sector going forward. So those are my comments, and I'll hand it over to the final presenter.
Thanks very much, Graham. Just listening to you speak there, I had to reflect on how my views of the mining industry just changed instantaneously. Because I have this, I guess, older view, of what I think mining is, and clearly it's moved into the 21st century, and clearly there's all kinds of opportunities in that area. Now I'd like to call on Gerald to give his presentation.
Am I on? There we go. So thanks for inviting me. Thanks for the introduction. So I've got to apologize. I'm not an HR person. I'm a PhD in physics. So you'll see from my slides here that I don't have that level of experience. But I made the transition from being a PhD in physics to being the research collaborations manager for Siemens. So when I was asked if I would give this presentation, the first thing that I thought of is, what am I going to contribute? How am I going to do this? So my first thought was, what about me? What's my background? How does this relate to me? So in joining Siemens, essential to this role was having a firm foundation in medical imaging, so particularly MRI. I've programmed in MR pulse sequences. I've done that development. That was essential for this role. I've also had background in ultrasound and other technologies, and that was a real asset. But I also manage contracts. I negotiate legal agreements. I do that almost daily. So I've also had contracts experience, and I've got halfway decent presentation skills, but that's something which is essential for this role as well. So there's a mix of technical, scientific, programming, and presentation skills that were essential for this role. So that made me think, what impact does that have for you? And I started thinking about this generation. I started thinking about new graduates coming forward. What skills are they going to have? What skills are they going to need? And I've written a comment here that you're going to be at an advantage because you're technically savvy, technologically savvy, comfortable with things like digital media, mobile devices, and so on. So I snuck into some of the digital sessions, the mobile sessions yesterday. I don't know if anyone saw any of those, but they were talking about how there's going to be an explosion in the usage and utility and connectivity of the mobile market. And you, having that knowledge, having that background, you're going to be at a distinct advantage. I stole this from one of our Siemens magazines, talking about revolutions in industry, the Industrial Revolution. And we're now on the cusp of another industrial revolution where we're looking at things like media, handheld media, playing a very vital role in industry. And that applies to healthcare as well. And I've said here that technology has converged and infiltrated many traditional technical or skilled trade positions. You've heard how skilled trades are very important. Well, one example that comes to mind is a field service technician. Traditionally, you're going to have an electricity background. You're going to be an electrician, for example. But now you're going to rely on automation You're going to have to understand diagnostic imaging if you're going to work in healthcare. You're going to have to have a lot more education and background. So that technology is going to be really essential to you being efficient at your work. As new graduates, you're going to have an advantage because of your background, your familiarity with digital media, with mobile devices, and so on. And Siemens is interested in people that have that background. Bringing that to Siemens is something that we're looking at. People with new ideas, new ways of approaching problems, new apps, phone apps, things that are novel and imaginative. The second thing I did when I was thinking about this presentation was I went to the Siemens Job Board, right? What jobs are available? And this is one that I pulled up, a technical application specialist. And it struck me that a career in healthcare, a technical, traditional career in healthcare can be a gateway to the corporate world so that you can participate in product development. So I'm heavily involved in product development in the sense that I manage research collaborations, things that eventually find their way into product. Well, this is a job application. This person is going to need lab experience, 2 to 3 years of lab experience in chemistry. So it's a very technical position. But you notice excellent communication skills, verbal and written. I mean, how many times have you heard that verbal skills are important and that's something that you write on your resume? That's great. But this job is really designed to provide technical support and feedback to the customers. Like you've actually got to interact with customers and be able to present our products. You've got to give demonstrations, presentations. So it's a really vital skill. Your success at this job is going to be dependent on your ability to communicate, your ability to present, your ability to translate that information. And you can pull up example by example, and you can show how this technical experience can get you into the door and can get you into things like product development, which is really exciting. So I was just commenting when you were presenting that these are some of the same things that we look for in Siemens. If you're applying for a job, yes, you have to have an organizational fit. You have to be able to do the job. But there's a whole list of things also that we look for. Integrity comes up to the top of the list. I don't know if you noticed my first slide, it actually had a little blank empty space at the bottom. I had a cartoon in there, and when I vetted my slides with our HR and our promotional people, they said, no, you can't use that because it's copyrighted. So I had to take that off. And I had a really nice graphic at the end, the one-eyed monster from Monsters, Inc. He's kind of slumped over, and I was trying to use that as an example of what not to do for a job interview. And I had to take that off too because Disney and Pixar won't allow you to use their slides. But I've used them before, when I was teaching in class and giving other presentations, but I was representing the university then, not Siemens. So integrity, I couldn't have a slide where I said, I'm promoting integrity and then, copyright slides. So we also look for things like initiative. You've got to be results oriented. You've got to be driven. Innovation, that's what this is all about. That's what this meeting is all about. Be innovative. You've got to be an innovative thinker. Come up with creative solutions. Relationship management, customer focus, those are huge. You've got to be able to deal with the customers and keep the customers happy. You've always got to be able to learn and analyze. If you stop learning, you should always be learning. You should always be driven to learn something new. Whether you work for Siemens or whatever you do, if you're not doing that, you're not going to be happy. Business acumen is also something very critical. If you've got that, you should sell it. Siemens is one thing that we do is people that we hire, we offer management designations. So I'm a manager. We have lots of PhDs that are managers, managing different divisions. Sensitivity, common sense, right? But the third thing that I was thinking, what is this, what is this session all about? What are the new and emerging careers that are coming up in healthcare in particular? I started to think about, there's all these things that are common. They've been around for ages, but one thing that Siemens and other companies are doing is they're trying to look at multimodality imaging, hybrid imaging. So down here on the bottom, there's an example, or down here on the bottom, there's an example of some great work coming out of Sunnybrook. where they're using high-intensity focused ultrasound to ablate lesions. So you, in combination, you use an MRI machine to locate where this lesion is, and then with ultrasound, you can destroy that lesion without actually having to cut that person up. It's a way of combining two imaging modalities to do something together that you couldn't do separately. We also have a PET CT. We're also the first ones to come to market with an MR PET system, where in traditional hospitals, you've got a MR physicist and a PET physicist. You've got an MR radiologist, and you've got a PET radiologist. You've got an MR technologist and a PET technologist. But now we're starting to see PET dual certified radiologists, dual certified technologists, people coming together and doing things with this technology that you can't do separately. Not just using this machine for MR or using this machine for PET, but doing things in combination that are truly unique, that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So we need to start seeing people, technologists, radiologists, with the combined background. So that would represent a new trend in imaging, where we want to see people coming from college that have that dual certification. And this is where I had to take out that slide, so I tried to find something that wasn't copyrighted. Never underestimate when you're going to a job interview, appearance, posture, eye contact, and so on. But things that you should also emphasize: if you've got management skills, sell them. Tell them if you've presented at a conference, mention that. Those are things that are really important. Computer skills, programming skills, and little things. Like I've got a few Raspberry Pis at home that I'm playing with. My son wants to do some robotics, so we're building some things. Even that's hobby, that's something that might be really interesting to a potential employer. If you've got any experience dealing with customers, managing customers, that's something that's very, very valuable. Contract experience, and I've put an asterisk beside be specific. One of my colleagues at Western hired a graduate student for a particular job, and that person was hired because they said that they had swimming. Swimming was a hobby, but after digging deeper, they found out that this person was actually on the Olympic swimming team. So I don't know if you know, but that's a really in-depth level of commitment to be on an Olympic swimming team. So those sorts of things are things that you want to highlight and bring to the top, and that will win you over in a job interview. And I'm going to finish with that.
Well, thank you very much, Gerald, for sharing the type of person and the skill sets that Siemens is looking for. Before we get to the Q&A, I think what I'll try and do is just do a little bit of a summary of what we heard. You know, Stephen spoke to data, and how data is very democratic, and there's a whole bunch of business opportunities if you know how to use and manage data properly, and you develop those practical applications where you can take the data and create those predictive analytical models that will manage some kind of future behavior or activity that would help increase productivity or move people faster or increase flow rates in pipelines and so forth. Lynn spoke about the jobs that exist in the electricity sector. You know, the aging workforce in that sector and the need for employees to fill those skills gaps. She talked about the skill sets that are important to them, such as skills or people with skills that can upgrade infrastructure and manage the smart grid. They need electrical tradespeople and system engineers as an example. Graham spoke to what's happening in the mining sector. You know, and what I really learned is that the mining really has great paying jobs. Okay, I didn't realize how great paying. I got to tell you, on a personal note, I have a bunch of children that live in my basement, okay? So this to me is really, really an important session, because I'm going to go home right now after this session. I'm going to say to them, listen folks, this is what you got to do, because you know, I'm not getting any younger. You can't live in my basement for the next 10 years. I got to get on with my life. So I'm really appreciative of being part of this panel. You know, he also spoke to the jobs and opportunities that are available there in mineral processing, exploration, support services, and extraction, and how they're looking for innovation. And they're looking for, you know, people that can take a look at minimizing the impacts that their industry is having on the environment. And they're looking for such skill sets such as an applied research, project management, geological, and the skills trades. Gerald spoke to that you need to be multifaceted, that you have to have multi-skills. It's no longer in the world and the way it's changing in industry that you have one set of skills and those skills are going to carry you for the next 30 or 35 years. like it did maybe for me, because the world was different when I joined the workforce. And he talked about you needed to be technically savvy. You need to be comfortable with mobile devices and social media. He also talked about fit. And that's very, very important. When you go around and you talk to HR managers, they will talk to you about fit. So it was really good to hear that part of the discussion. You know, he talked about the soft skills. You know, what will distinguish you from 400 other applicants that have applied perhaps for the same job? And sometimes it is those soft skills. So he talked about integrity, he talked about results orientation, customer focus, business acumen, etc. So at this point, I'm going to stop, and we're going to open the floor to questions. I would ask that you don't make statements, please. Okay, just limit yourself to a question. And do we have anyone at all for the first question? And you can direct it at any of the panel members, or you can just throw it out as an open question, and then we can decide amongst ourselves who to best answer that question. Oh, if you just come to the podium, please. If you just state your name, and if it's a directed question to who. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. We'll come right down there, and we'll.
It's always a challenge.
There we go.
Hi, my name is Yasmin, and I'm actually, I appreciate it if any of your panelists could answer this question. It's more like an open question. I have computer science background, and I'm an information system business analyst, specifically interested in the application of big data in health informatics and GIS. And I was wondering, what skills should I focus on developing? This is like the beginning of my career. And I was wondering if you could give me some insight of what skills I can focus on in order to advance my career and have a good shot out there. Thank you.
So take the first shot, Stephen.
Okay, so I'll take a shot at this to start, and we'll see, probably jump all the way down to the other side of the health sector. I mean, first of all, you've got a good set of skills. You have to think about what you want your job to be, because there's going to be a lot of places now that you have to look. So for example, I split it into descriptive and predictive and prescriptive analytics. Prescriptive, I think we're not seeing any of that happening yet. That's a little bit more in the future. But when you see applying your skills, do you see them as, how do I make an operation run more smoothly? In which case you look for supply chain management, generally the categories ERP. I take my IBM hat off for a second and say that a lot of places are using SAP. A lot of IBM consultants are trained in SAP tools because that's what the customers want. We have our own lines of tools, Cognos in particular, that would fit in that realm. At the other end, you get the new jobs, the ones where you step in and nobody's done it before. So you're going to be stepping a little bit into a vacuum, so confidence, presentation skills, always are going to help more in there. And those sorts of jobs are the ones where you apply data for new information, to discover new things. It may be in hospital situations, how do hospitals operate? How do you make them operate more efficiently? It may be identifying treatment success rates. It may be the whole triage process. We have projects right now that are looking into those sorts of things. And it's going to be something I don't know about. So, I mean, it really is hard to say. But if you're looking at those sorts of skills, it's all going to be more how you present yourself, as well as how you understand and analyze data. But being able to present, I mean, all those skills are available. They're useful anywhere these days. Okay.
Any other panel members?
Hello. Hello. Personally, I'd like to see a research collaboration between Siemens and IBM on I'm thinking MRI, for example, where there's a ton of information that comes out of the MRI machine, and a lot of it has got to be analyzed after the fact. It's not done at the console. So there's a ton of data there that is either not being used, being analyzed later, or just being thrown away. Whereas working together with this large data set, there's a lot of opportunity. Like if you look at diffusion tensor imaging, where you're looking at fiber tracts in the brain, there's a lot of information there that you can pull out and use. And if you can find a way to rapidly analyze all that information as it's coming, you can do a lot of things in live time, things for surgical neurointervention, all kinds of interesting applications start to come up.
Thank you.
Can I just, I'll give you some practical, very practical advice. So with the background that you already have, one of the areas that I would look at is project management. And I think that a couple of folks up here mentioned that. So, you know, take project management courses, get the PMP designation, you'll stand above the crowd with something like that. And then the other advice I would give you is be involved in your community. That too will set you apart from other applicants. It'll give you opportunities to work with other people, to be exposed to other, you know, different types of folks, and it'll give you opportunities to take on a leadership role as well. Okay?
If we could go to mic number 2, please.
Okay, there we go. Hi, my name is Nathan Laurie. This is a question for the panel. Are you getting any upward feedback from the hiring managers about a skill shortage from maybe students coming into the workforce where there's either a frustration with the skill level or missing skills that you wish the schools were focusing more on a certain trades or a certain technology or a certain program that's just not available? And I'm just curious to hear what, you know, if it was your wish list and if you were speaking to a school, what would you want them to be teaching that they're not, and what would you like these students to be able to do? Sorry? No, anyway, that's my question.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the schools aren't necessarily meeting the skills, sort of the curriculum requirement. I think one of the key challenges is the ability to inspire potential students into going into a particular career path. We talked about trades earlier. There's plenty of trades training capability out there. I sit on the board of Mohawk College, one of the biggest apprenticeship program providers in Ontario. The capability is there, the curriculum is there, but trades aren't attractive. So as a result, we're not getting the supply, not necessarily because we don't have the ability to create it, but because we're not able to inspire potential candidates to take a look at these kinds of careers. That's why we talked about mining, that's what we talked about, as was mentioned earlier, I'm on the CME board as well, and manufacturing has a very, very bad image as well. It's seen as dirty, and quite frankly, most of the patents, most of the innovation activity in Ontario is driven out of manufacturing, but people don't see that. So I'm not sure it's really a curriculum issue. I think it's more a question of, are we able to get people interested in the careers where the need is? So that's all of our jobs as ambassadors for our industries, our companies, for sectors. We have to get out there and tell the story, and that's part of what we're doing today, I think.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up there. Is this something that we need to do at the high school level, where the kids are starting to formulate, you know, their ideas and the types of careers that they're looking for? That maybe if they had a little more information of what was available out there and what were the emerging trends, that might be helpful. Maybe then you could speak to that.
I can speak to that. I would go even younger than that, because the sciences and the math are so important, and you have to be really grounded in those in elementary school, right? And like the grade 7 and 8 math and science is so key, and that helps you in high school. So I would go even before high school, and speak to students about the career opportunities, especially in the skills trades and in the engineering world as well. But I'll just go back to your original question. One area that we're constantly challenged with, and in fact we we look at testing in the hiring process is very simple. It's reading comprehension, it's writing, it's the very basic skills, right? I have a 14-year-old and she doesn't use a lot of words when she texts me, right? It's a couple of letters and I'm supposed to figure it out from there. And I think that that's great, but on the other hand, we're getting away from, reading comprehension, writing, the whole communication, the very strong communication skills. I don't know if you...
Let me put one more... Actually, let me come back to you with a different thought entirely. IBM brings in a couple hundred interns each year, mostly into the software jobs. That's phrased a different way, inverting it for a second. There's a couple hundred chairs sitting there waiting for a bum to sit in the chair. And at the end of that process, more and more of those chairs are empty. And we've noticed this over the last few years. And it's not like the hiring manager doesn't need to have somebody working at that job. But out of all the students who are applying, they've chosen 0. They've chosen not to fill the chair because they didn't want to have none of the students who presented suited that position. I'm not 100% sure. When I've talked to the hiring managers, it isn't a discussion about skills. There's a feeling that if you understand the underlying technology, we can teach you the tool. The tools are not, at the level I'm talking about, it's basic programming skills, it's basic data management skills. These are not the more advanced consulting type of things I'm not talking about the MBA type of students. And it's not the students don't have those, it's they're not communicating. And so the manager is left going, I can't tell if I'm going to put somebody there who's going to be a drain on the system. And that's what it comes down to. So there is a lack. I think it comes into the interest in the technology. There's not as many people coming forward. But I think it's as much a lack of ability to communicate what you bring to the table and how you bring it to the table.
All right, thank you.
I think we have time for one more question. Okay, I think you were first, and if we're really quick, we'll try and get the second one in, but I'm not sure. Okay, go ahead.
I can't get this up.
Okay,
right,
you just got to duck a little bit. No, here, hang on.
Is it the...
See, you're good with apps. I'm good with mechanical things.
Fair enough. The answers to the last question simultaneously thrilled and frustrated me, because as somebody who doesn't have a technical, or rather a technological background in his education, but does have a liberal arts background and a certain amount of technical and technological savvy, I am constantly frustrated by how difficult it can be to find jobs and careers in positions such as those to which all of you spoke. And so I was wondering if any of you, or all of you, or one of you, or however many, would be willing to speak to the kinds of roles that there are for those with a liberal arts education paired with technical and technological savvy, as I believe it's Stephen, who's at IBM, was just speaking to.
Do you want to try, Stephen?
Yeah, I think, when we talk about the application of the, if you will, the liberal arts sort of background, one of the key, you just described about 3 key aspects that you would probably be an important part of your curriculum: communication, problem solving in particular. I think that what we tend to undervalue in terms of liberal arts is the sense of bringing a different perspective to a problem. Sometimes we get transfixed with a very tunnel vision type of technical solution, and we're not looking laterally. So you want to have people in your team that can do that for you. But I'm not sure that companies are sufficiently flexible in their credentials for hiring that they necessarily see that as a core skill. It is a core skill in a team. So the challenge for a lot of companies is how do we bring that skill in to complement the technical skills that exist. So areas that I don't think would prevent you from applying those skills would be things like project management. You don't need to be a technical expert to be an excellent project manager. And there's a lot of project management call in all sectors of the economy right now. So that allows you to sort of bring yourself into the technical dialogue without necessarily having a technical background. So I'd encourage you to think about that, because for me, I think the problem solving, you want as many perspectives as possible. So you don't necessarily want a purely technical solution. You may want some other types of thinking brought to bear. So just my thoughts.
I can speak to that. Where did you go? There you are. So some of the areas that you might want to look at are communications. I think the best folks in communications are not necessarily those who have communication degrees or journalism degrees, but actually those who have liberal arts degrees or political science degrees as well. So the human resources field, it's a pretty exciting field, and that's another area I would suggest that you look at. The sales world. The sales world is, we have a sales workforce that sells our energy services to our customers. So there's a lot of opportunities. You have to find something that you're really good at and something that you like to do, and then find the company that you want to work with.
I was just going to echo some of those comments as well. Project management is important. For a company like Siemens, you could still get involved, and you can still, even if you don't have to have for some jobs you need to have that technical background. But for some, you just have to have some level of technical knowledge. But there are, like, we have a magazine for several of the different imaging modalities that we publicize. So we need writers, we need editors, we need human resources, we need PR people. So there's all sorts of opportunities, even within healthcare, for someone with a liberal arts background. I don't know if that helps answer your question.
Close the discussion at this time as we are running beyond our allotted timeline. I would just like to thank the panel, for the excellent comments that you provided. I'd like to call on Tanya just to close the session.
Thanks so much, everyone, for sticking it out with us. I'd like to thank the panelists, Stephen Perelgut, Lynn Perron-Garvey, Graham Brown, and Gerald Moran, and our moderator Louie DiPalma. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to share their insights with us today. As a small token of thanks, we have some goodies here, which I'll distribute in just a moment. Also like to thank you for your participation and your interest. This is the last presentation in this theater, but the booths are open, so use this opportunity to network, speak with employers. There's some professional services areas, there's a career zone, so please take advantage of those. And if you want to ask some more personal questions to the panel, they'll be here for another couple minutes. So thank you very much. Have a great evening.